why fund managers can't beat the S&P 500? Because they're sheep, and sheep get slaughtered.
The numbers told the story, they always do.
Money never sleeps, pal.
Because all we care about is getting fucking rich. You connect points I don't even know to look for.
The most valuable commodity I know of is information.
Public's out there throwing darts at a board, sport. I don't throw darts at a board. I bet on sure things.
Welcome, Karma Clan, to the Sports Trading Desk podcast. I'm your host, Brett Matthew, with my co-host, Zach James, your lead strategists for the Bet Karma Sportfolios. Today, it's the NFL Week 1 kickoff special. We're going to talk to you about what our futures, win total bets look like as of this moment, and then also preview Week 1, give you a little bit of insight and feedback around what we think about each game, how we're leaning with respect to the spread, and maybe even sprinkle in a bet or two. So to start, let's pass it to Zach, and he can talk to us a little bit about some of our favorite futures and exotic plays heading into the season.
Alrighty, Brett, thank you so much. What a great guy. So who's excited for some NFL football? It's been a long 6 months. It's been difficult, I'm sure, for everybody. So this is a nice reprieve, no matter what your views are on anything out there in the world. Nothing like some good old football on Sunday to just kind of make everything feel a little better. So for our futures this season, last year we were up 6% on our futures. We have our core portfolio, we have our aggressive sportfolio, and then we have our kind of exotic futures playoff Super Bowl sportfolio kind of as its separate entity, just so we can really gauge the market of our performance versus others, since these are more kind of exotic plays. So for this season, we have 10 exotics we want to launch for the more exotic portfolio. For our division winners, our longest odds division winner that we really like, that we're going to put a unit on, is the Lions. We think the Lions are in a division where any team really could win the division. But the Lions are plus 450 currently, which is where we're going to put a percent on. And so we think as long as Stafford is healthy and Matt Patricia learns how not to screw up a little bit, Lions have just as much of a chance to win this division as any team in the division. So from there, we're going to also pick up 3 more division winners that we like. We like the Colts at plus 122. I think demonstrably the most well-rounded team in that division, obviously if everyone's healthy. Seattle plus 183 is a really strong line for a team that really was a yard away or less from winning the division last year against a almost brilliant, perfect season by the San Francisco 49ers. And then we are going to go with the, seasoned veteran New England Patriots at plus 149. We just think that's too much to pass up. Yes, there's a lot of changeover. Yes, Brady's gone. But Belichick still finds a way to win 10 games a year no matter what happens. So if he wins 10 games, I think he's going to be right there to win the division again, surpassing the Bills. And so for our season win totals, we have 4 plays that we are putting a unit on. We have Carolina under 5.5. We have Rams under 8.5 wins. We have Vikings under 9 wins. And we have Titans under 9 wins. And the reason we're doing all unders this season is because of the COVID situation, because there was no preseason. It's very likely we're going to see an uptick in injuries, an uptick in potentially, who knows, games being canceled or games being delayed, or just variables that no one's ever seen before. So we think that there's more advantage and edge to lean towards unders anyways. So that's where we're putting our future bets for season totals. And then we have two longer shot odds, an NFC champion and an AFC champion. We have Seattle at plus 630. And then we have the Colts plus 1,200. And the reason we like the Colts at plus 1,200 is really because if the Colts make the playoffs and make a run and just make it to the AFC championship game, at plus 1,200, let's say they're playing the Chiefs. Chiefs are probably going to be minus 220 in that game or something in that range. So it gives us room to hedge. If we want to put money on the Chiefs, we can. If we want to live bet out of that Colts position, we may have an opportunity to do so. So because the number is so high, it kind of gives us some flexibility if the Colts can't even make the game of the AFC Championship. So those are our future bets and kind of what we're looking at for the season if you're looking for some exotic plays, so to speak, in our more exotic portfolio. And Brett, anything to add to those plays?
Yeah, so I think it is, really important to stress the point that because of so many unknowns this season, that really playing any overs is just negative expected value. We like the Lions to win the North. The Lions are sitting at 6.5, 7 from a expected win totals perspective. So if we like them to win the division, then we should like them over 6.5, 7, and we do. But we're just not going to bet any overs. And also, we don't necessarily want to double down on the position per se as well. And also, it's not even necessarily that, we think that the Lions winning the division is a slam dunk, but it's basically being priced as if they have a 2.5% chance of winning the North. And we think it's much higher than that. We think, it's much closer to 40, maybe even 50%, because a lot of these teams are equally matched. But with the expectation that the Lions actually have the most talent collectively across all four teams. The biggest weakness that we kind of see there is they probably have the worst coaching within the division. So that definitely hurts. And then, of course, just Stafford being injury prone, that could also come into play. So a lot of moving pieces, but again, just that goes to express why we're avoiding any overs. And then on the rest of the picks that Zach talked about, again, we just have isolated value, especially in those prices. A lot of the unders that we were taking were also plus money. So we thought, that was also, again, positive expected value there. So that kind of wraps up kind of what our highest conviction preseason bets are as we head into 2020. So now let's talk about our initial leans, our current views on each one of the week 1 games. So let's kick off with the Thursday night game. Texans at the Chiefs, currently wobbling between plus 9.5, plus 10. I think I had seen it as high as plus 11 earlier in the summer when lines first came out. So it has dipped a little bit lower. Texans, I don't know if they got better over the course of the offseason. The line is certainly expressing that they haven't. And the Chiefs might be better than last year. So what are your first kind of like initial leanings on this game, Zach?
Yeah, when I first saw this line, I thought it was way too high at 10. And part of the reason is the Chiefs defense has, they're going to be missing a cornerback for the first month of the season, and they have some new pieces. So they may need some time to really get their defense, which isn't that good to begin with. It's about a 20th ranked defense in the NFL. So just give them some time to gel. And with Deshaun Watson, I know they lost DeAndre Hopkins, but with Brandon Cooks, Will Fuller, Kenny Stills, Kiki Kuti, they have a lot of weapons. And so I don't see Houston having a lot of struggles scoring the ball or driving the ball down the field as far as throwing. So at 10 points, it just seems egregiously high because the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes. Chiefs came back against everybody in the playoffs and won by 10 no matter what. You know, like, I think it's a lot of just obvious reasons as to why this line is so high, which is from public sentiment. And it's not based on where these teams match up in week one, having all offseason to prepare for each other. So, yeah, it's just, to me, it's Texans or bust if you're going to take the spread. The total, I would like to tease this down if you were interested in the total right now. Maybe actually parlay, tease the Texans up, kind of give some leeway and do the over, over like 40, 48 maybe. So that's kind of where I'm at with that game.
Yeah, I think, well, and this is too one of our macro views across the board for week one and maybe leading into week two is to lean over. So our kind of like baseline view is that the offenses are going to be ahead of the defenses. Now, that might not be the case in every single game. There's definitely a component here where you could say, players haven't been in live game action. They're going to be rusty. They're not going to be able to execute. And offense obviously requires affirmative execution. So maybe the defense has the edge here. And who knows? I mean, that definitely could happen. It's hard to really say. But I think our kind of like collective view is that the offenses will ultimately have the edge. I'm watching Hard Knocks and, looking at some of the practices that they have, even the ones in pads, still not full speed, not tackling with the same sort of authority. And I think that what we're going to see across the board in week one is just missed tackling galore. I think it's going to be super sloppy football on defense. And so I think especially some teams that are more well coached, have a competent quarterback, have a good playbook, they're going to be able to execute. And I think we're going to get to see some high scoring here. So I think our bias is going to be to the over, not necessarily over in every game, but for the most part, I think if you're just going to bet blindly every single game, you bet over, I think, you're going to be positive units. So I think kind of what we talk about in this game, I think Zach, you make a lot of really good points. I think there is a distinction between Texans plus 10 and Texans plus 9.5. I don't know if 9.5 is actionable yet. 10, I think 10 is because, Chiefs could be winning by 17 and you get, a BS backdoor touchdown by the Texans to cut it to 10 and you get that nice push, at least as a safety net. At 9.5, you're not going to get that. I think the Texans will keep it a competitive game. I mean, again, the team is just full of injury-prone players. But so if you're going to bet on this team, betting on them week one is probably the best time to do so. Even going into week one last year, I remember the Texans were +7 at the Saints. And, I really like the Texans in that spot. The Texans were leading for most of the game, if you remember, should have won it straight up. Ultimately ended up losing it by, I think, a point or two, like on a last-second field goal. So I think,
and something to point out, like I know it doesn't technically matter, but the Chiefs, just got their ring ceremony, which happened, 10 days before the first game. So like, let's put context to this. If this was the middle of the season, let's say, and, they have a game in 10 days. So they had Thursday night football and they play the next Sunday. And, Friday, they have this big party and all the players are, oh, we're so great. Look at my ring. I'm so happy. Yay, 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 yay. And then 10 days later, they got to play a football game. So there's a level of like, it seems harmless, but I think it's actually more damaging because this wasn't done 2 months ago. This is done right before this season. It's going to fill them with hot air. They're still going to be good. They're still going to score. But is there a level of predictable mistakes that allow the Texans to be in this game and have a chance to maybe even win it? I think absolutely. And we saw this last year with the Texans versus the Saints. We never thought Bill O'Brien was a good coach. I honestly didn't buy the Texans were going to play so well against the Saints. They did. They outplayed the Saints, and they should have won straight up. So, I think Bill O'Brien is smart enough to kind of figure out what works and what doesn't when he's given enough time to prepare. So I think Texans are going to be able to keep up. So, yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. And so the public is actually on the Chiefs right now. And, you know, I don't know if this line is pricing in some sort of home field advantage for the Chiefs at Arrowhead. If so, you know, again, I think that's a miscalculation. And I think, you know, that's something we'll talk about as we continue to go down the slate here, is it seems like most home teams are still being given that standard 2-3 points of home field advantage, which I'm not sure what the substance behind that is in a season with no fans. And some people have, you know, made the observation that, you know, from a quantitative perspective, there is no kind of discernible edge when kind of looking at all the analytics over what gives home teams any sort of edge. And they're saying that there is no edge to fans. So if there's fans or no fans, that's not the contributing factor. But the contributing factor is bias of referees. But the bias from referees is a derivative from the fan component. So with no fan component, referees are going to be less biased for the home team because the fans are the ones directing that. So I think there's almost no edge for a home field, especially in week one, where I expect a lot of these road teams to have, traveled to the destination well in advance, doing all their COVID testing, etc. Everyone's going to be oriented to whatever the current, time lag is or time distance, and to a lot of the games that we're seeing this year in week one are division games as well. So naturally, the spread should likely be much tighter than it otherwise would be as well. So
and to your point, Brett, Texans and Chiefs played each other 2 times last year. So for all intents and purposes, this is a division game the next year, so to speak, right?
Familiarity, at least.
They've seen the familiarity. So in that sense, that line's pretty high for a division game of 2 teams that met in the playoffs not that long ago.
All right, so let's move on to the next game, moving into Sunday. Dolphins at Patriots. Lions currently sitting around 6. Public is a little bit split on this one. No discernible way. What's your kind of initial leaning, Zach?
Obviously you're going to have more tickets on the Patriots just because of the namesake. I don't love the Dolphins in this spot. They really ruined the Patriots season last year. And I just have a hard time believing that an entire offseason with Bill Belichick, and obviously it isn't the normal offseason, but anytime Bill Belichick has extended time to really gauge his opponent, it's just not a good bet to bet against him. And at only 6, I mean, can Cam Newton score, win this game by 7? I don't think that's that tall of an order. And yes, they have new pieces on both sides of the ball, but they still have probably the best coaching in the NFL. And the Dolphins were, last year, from a talent standpoint, one of the worst teams maybe in NFL history to start the season, especially if Josh Rosen would have remained the quarterback, which he didn't. So, talent-wise, Patriots are still better. Coaching-wise, Patriots are the best in the NFL. I mean, there's no way I can take the Dolphins in the spot. So it's either Patriots or bust.
I can see what you're saying, but I think this really comes down to who's going to be quarterback for the Dolphins in week 1. Is Fitz going to be back? I know he's had some minor injuries, some personal issues. If this is either Rosen or Tua, then this is slam dunk Patriots. It doesn't look like that's going to be the case. It looks like Fitz will be the starter. And if so, The Dolphins have always, like the past few years, Dolphins have been playing the Patriots tough, minus that week 2 debacle from last year when, the Dolphins just weren't in the right place. And that's when you had the high-powered version of the Patriots. Brady, Josh Gordon, what's his name?
AB?
AB. Just and at full health, like it was just obviously a disaster. But now the Dolphins, possibly have the best cornerback duo in the NFL with Xavier Howard and Byron Jones. They have Kyle Van Noy at linebacker from the Patriots from last year. They have a decent defensive line, especially with Christian Wilkins, Raekwon Davis. And then on offense, I thought it was always underrated, even last year. And they've definitely upgraded. You got Gesicki at tight end, so in like another year, he kind of started to blossom the second half of last year. Now you have Jordan Howard, Matt Breida, 1-2 punch. Devontae Parker, Preston Williams, again, 2 like super underrated wide receivers, I feel like. And then Fitz, of course, who can play like Fitz magic. He has extremely high ceiling at minimum. Like we can all agree to that. Now he has a low floor as well. And no matter what, the Patriots are not going to come out and dominate this game. I am very confident of that. There's just been way too much turnover on that team. Cam Newton, brand new. Tons of people are tooting the horn about because he was named starter 1 week prior to the beginning of the season. He should have been named starter a long time ago. I'm surprised that the quarterback race was as close as it was throughout training camp. The players love Cam Newton. Great. They like him. I really need to see him perform in action. And we haven't seen him perform well for almost years now. And again, the talent around him is just bleak. Now, of course, they have Bill Belichick. They have Josh McDaniels. And I love the McDaniels-Newton kind of combo relationship, having Newton as a tool for Josh McDaniels. McDaniels, drafted Tebow in the first round. You brought this to our attention on Twitter, Zach. I think that was a great observation. That's the one thing that's resonating so much with me. And again, I still like Patriots, like we talked about, to win the division. I just don't know week 1 here is the best time to take them, or more so to your point, that like the Dolphins are a non-starter at +6. I don't think they're a non-starter.
So I agree with you that the Dolphins are. It's more so betting against the Patriots and Bill Belichick week 1 is the non-starter. So you've convinced me that it's not that the Dolphins are non-starter. It's that betting against the Patriots is a non-starter
that could
with
be fair.
time for Belichick to prepare for a Fitzmagic. So he's got the experience. He's got the tape. Like he's not going to have any, he's not going to be caught by surprise, more or less. So that's my general take.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I don't know I don't expect we'll probably have action on this game. This is one of the lower totals at 43. But this is actually one of those games. I don't know. I don't know. I'd have to think about it, but I think this isn't one of those games where I would be enthusiastic to take the over, even though it is one of the lowest the lowest totals of the week. Next game, Browns-Ravens. Browns at Ravens. Browns +8, over under 49. What's your thoughts, Zach?
Yeah, it looks like, there's more money on the Cleveland line than, because the tickets are all on the Ravens. So, fundamentally is kind of where I like to start with games because it builds the foundation of the handicap. And fundamentally, again, it's my biggest fear with the Ravens week 1 is the consistency of the team. John Harbaugh, Greg Roman, they bring a lot of the same players back, the same offense. They have something to prove. So there's a lot going in the favor of the Ravens and with continuity, which is a big deal, I think, this year, the first few weeks. And the Browns come in with a new coaching staff. So, and kind of some changeover on defense. Their offense should be just fine in the long run. But with how the Ravens play their games, either it's going to be a tight affair and Ravens just aren't clicking and the Browns maybe even win, or Ravens win by 2 to 3 touchdowns. So it's hard for me to really gauge this game because I think the more likely scenario is Ravens pull away and the Browns kind of, crap out towards the end.
Yeah, that could be.
So that's kind of where I'm at with this game. It's another game that I'm probably not interested in really putting action into. But if I had to pick a side, I would have no problem teasing the Ravens down with something else I like. Maybe like the Colts, for instance, tease that down and kind of do a Ravens-Colts, 1 to 2 point spread on each teaser.
Yeah, the thing is why I wouldn't like a teaser with Ravens is because, to your point, I think that if the Browns make this game competitive, it's because the Browns are going to win, or the Ravens are going to blow them out. And, to your point, I probably don't want to bet against John Harbaugh week 1 more so than I don't want to bet against Bill Belichick week 1. I mean, he definitely has his teams well put together. There's tons, to your point, tons of continuity here. They know what they're doing. They got a chip on their shoulder.
And
new head coaching on the Browns.
And remember, like we saw last year, week 1, up 4 touchdowns, they do a fake punt against the worst team that wasn't even ready to play football yet.
Yeah.
So
the Ravens could definitely try to stomp on the Browns' throats if they have the capacity to.
And because it's a division game, because there's nothing better than demoralizing a team in your division who you got to play again. For
sure. The thing is the Browns definitely have a chip on their shoulder as well. It's a new culture. They have, a fresh Kareem Hunt in combination with Nick Chubb now. Kareem Hunt never really got rolling with the team last year. Obviously he was suspended for the first half of the season, and then kind of got slowly implemented into the game plan over time. I think, so now they have the full complements of Chubb and Hunt. And then, of course, a robust wide receiver set with Beckham, Landry, Higgins. I've been hearing some really positive things about Donovan Peoples-Jones from Michigan. And then, of course, the two-headed monster at tight end with Hooper and Njoku, who it sounds like from what we've been hearing that, with Stefanski going to implement this very Vikings-esque offense, and have a lot of 2 tight end sets, and then also using the running backs like they used Dalvin Cook last year, who had 50 plus receptions. So Kareem Hunt, very good at catching the ball out of the backfield. I think people forget how dynamic Kareem Hunt was because he just hasn't really been on the scene for over really a season. Since he was suspended, in 2018, around like week 12 or so. So, and then the one of the biggest weaknesses for the Browns, which was their offensive line, they really upgraded that. They got Jack Conklin from the Titans, at right tackle, and drafted first-round draft pick Jedrick Willis from Alabama to be their starting left tackle. So this is definitely going to be a better unit, and we know Baker Mayfield was constantly under pressure last year. And then, of course, the defense also has just great names. Obviously, Myles Garrett, Sheldon Richardson, Olivier Vernon, Denzel Ward, Greedy Williams. They just got Ronnie Harrison from the Jags, Carl Joseph. They got talent here, and obviously I think everyone knows that. It's just about how can it come together. But the one thing keeping me off of it is this spread at 8. They're throwing you an extra point, which is worthless, to make the Browns seem more attractive when they're really not giving you anything. It's superficial. Mm-hmm. If this line creeps lower, this is basically how I'd say. I like the Browns better at plus 6.5 than I do at plus 8. If the market gets to plus 6.5, I feel like that is meaningful because the public is not on the Browns. And if it gets through 7, even if it gets to 7, I'd find it more attractive. But especially, my God, if it got through 7 by game time, that is super bullish on the Browns.
Mhm.
And I would take
That's
6.5 if it got 6.5.
Yeah, that's a very good point. We'll finish on this game with that is, the fishiness of an 8, which is a dead number, is, it's like Brett said, it's trying to make the Browns a little more attractive to you because they know everyone's going to take the Ravens. They know the public, there's 90% tickets on the Ravens. They know that money is going to be coming in on the Ravens. So they're trying to make the Browns a little more attractive without giving the game away. So if big money pushes this line down to 7, that's a huge indicator that there's enough value seen with the Browns being competitive in this game and actually playing well that could be worth considering. But again, for my purposes, I just don't want to bet against Harbaugh on this spot. So that's kind of my ultimate.
Obviously, veteran, great head coach versus a brand new rookie head coach with, a team that still didn't even come together throughout all of last season. Might take a few weeks for the Browns to get their shit together. Yeah. So Jets at Bills. Jets are sitting at 6.5, over under 39.5. So I think this is actually the lowest total of the week.
Yeah, I think last year the first game between these teams was 17-16. And actually, Jets should have won the game. It was, obviously it was so close. Either team should have won the game. But, Jets were right there. I think, something fluky happened at the end. Probably Josh Allen running the ball on 4th down, getting 15 yards or something. So, it's tricky because these teams hate each other. They know each other. But the Jets are really, they're just a constant shit show to start every season. And it's not as bad as last year, but they don't have a very good defense to begin with because of the pieces they lost from last year. So that coupled with, their receivers are all banged up. Is Sam Darnold going to get his footing? There's, dissension in the locker room for running back Le'Veon Bell. Frank Gore is going to be the starter maybe. So there's all these kind of hanging chads of deception of how good or not is this team that makes them such a dangerous play until we have some sure-footedness. And with the Bills, you know what you're getting. The Bills, they're going to run the ball. They're going to play defense. If they get a lead, they might salt it away, but it'll probably be close. So I don't know. The Jets are just such a variable right now. It's very hard to lean either way, which is why, I don't know if you can really take the Jets because you just don't know really what they even are. Yeah. So this is actually better than the Ravens pick. I think this Bills pick, if you really wanted to get action on this game, this might be worth teasing down and get, the Bills closer to even money with a tease. So, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think my favorite angle in this game is the over 39.5. So I'm looking at this. This looks like it is the lowest total game. And I could see this definitely going over 39.5. I think this is being priced like last year's week 1 game, which was a standard week 1 game with a traditional offseason and both teams near full health. That's back when the Jets still had C.J. Mosley even playing. And of course Jamal Adams and Marcus May, and the Jets the most now. They've had some wide receiver issues, but I think they're going to be close to full health by week 1. Most of the issues are really coming on defense, and I think Sam Darnold with Chris Herndon, with Perryman, with Crowder. And then I think even Denzel Mims, rookie, is going to be able to go week 1. I think this offense is going to be able to put 20-plus points on the board. And at 39.5, if you can get 20 from the Jets, I think you're definitely going to get more than 20 from the Bills. So that's a slam.
It's actually a very good point because last year, this game was a similar game. Was a touchdown away from going over this total. So can you expect 7 more points in a game with a worse defense for the Jets, better offense for the Bills, more consistency on offense with the Jets, and no preseason? The advantage is to the offense like we believe it is. So, there's all these variables pointing that, it's not, like, to your point, it's not necessarily going to be a low scoring 17-16 type game.
Mm-hmm. And two, I wonder why the Jets are 6.5. I mean, if the Jets are so bad and the Bills are so good, why isn't this at least 7 or 7.5?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why isn't this more like Ravens Browns? I mean, the separation between Ravens Browns is bigger than the separation between Bills Jets. I think that's a mispricing. And then, of course, but you know, I don't necessarily feel strongly about taking the Jets, because I think there could definitely be some clusterfuck that happens in the end of this game and Bills win by double digits, no problem. But I definitely do like the over 39.5. I can see a defensive score in this game as well. I definitely don't see it being a slow, you know, paced game. I think if there's errors, they're going to be errors that result in points for the other team. Fumbles picked up, returned for touchdowns, you know, punt returns for touchdown, kickoff return for touchdown, pick six, you know, all things adding points on the board that have even nothing to do with a potent offense and a bad defense. I think the Bills defense is probably still going to be a little bit rusty.
Well, and that's actually, you've actually convinced me, because I want to remind everyone, you know, every Sunday I'm going to be doing, you know, Zach's NFL Sunday Blitz report, where I'm going to go down the NFL Sunday slate and suggest what part of each game you should consider playing. So in this one, Brett's obviously advocating for playing the over on the total rather than, let's say, play the spread or play this in a teaser, etc. So Brett has convinced me that this will be for this game, my recommendation, I'll let the cat out of the bag now, is going to be the over 39.5 for this game. So if you want to put action on this game, that's going to be essentially our recommendation. That's where we see the most EV is in the total, not in, you know, playing either side, not, you know, anything else.
Yeah. And I think even a good teaser here would be, you know, tease the over and tease the Bills. So you got like Bills that basically pick an over 33. I think that's, you know, a good exotic. Especially, I mean, if the Bills lose this one, week 1 straight up versus the Jets, that there's been zero positive commentary coming out of training camp besides Chris Herndon's play. If the Bills lose this, I mean, I wouldn't want to overreact too much, but that's not a good signal about all these raging bulls on the Bills this offseason about how they're going to win 10, 11 games and are the clear-cut favorite to win, you know, the AFC East. That would be disastrous. So those are some good angles. The other thing I'm kind of thinking about here too, just as a broad macro view, is I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these games, the first few series are kind of clunky, they're feeling each other out. I mean, there's going to be literally, there's no preseason. There's going to be literally the first action really hitting somebody. I wouldn't be surprised if some of these first few series result in no points, result in punts. And if that's the case, I think live betting the overs as they kind of fall, you know, 3-4 points, I think, boom, just hit them.
And to your point, I think that's really important because it's actually twofold. It's not just, you know, like you said, getting just kind of situated offensively and feeling each other out, you know, kind of like a boxing match. Like, you don't go all out, most boxers, in the first round. You kind of pace yourself, you know, you're waiting for your the right moment, so to speak. You know, I think you'll see something similar, but also as the game wears on, the opposite trend is going to happen, which is defenses are going to wear out much quicker, sooner, faster, harder. So it's actually the perfect storm of fade going overs in the first half, but buy overs, you know, if you're doing live or in the second half, across the board generally.
Yeah, that's actually a really great point. Buy low on these totals as they fall, you know, through the course of the first quarter. And I think, you know, one of the things I probably should have topped it off, you know, like at the beginning of this podcast to kind of provide some quantitative support to this qualitative argument around the bias being towards the over and the offense having the edge is one of the things that we've talked about a lot is the year of 2011 in the NFL, when there was the lockout throughout the course of the offseason. A lot of players, didn't participate in offseason programs with their teams. And going into that season, in week 1, the overs went 13-2-1, and were just a few points off from basically going 15-1. So, that just is at least one, example of kind of what I feel like kind of substantiates this, bias that we thought that we might see over the course of week 1. So there is a precedent out there. So let's move on. Raiders at Panthers. Raiders -2.5, over under 48 right now. And it looks like the public is pounding the Raiders. What's your thoughts?
I am with the public on this. So, I've done a little bit of a deep dive on both these teams, and I feel like I have a strong pulse on both to start the season. I think the Panthers are not going to be as bad as people think on the macro scale, especially offensively. And I think the Raiders are going to be much improved from last year, especially once they get their receiving core, a bunch of new talent kind of situated with Derek Carr, and hopefully build Derek Carr's confidence a little bit. So in this game, Panthers lost 6 starters on defense last year, including their biggest key, Luke Kuechly. And on offense, they brought in LSU's passing attack quarterback with Joe Burrow for their national championship team, who is a disciple of Sean Payton. So I think with the Raiders' last few years of kind of futility on defense, a lot of weapons on offense, Carolina having Christian McCaffrey and a competent Teddy Bridgewater with DJ Moore, I really love the over in this. And like Brett said, maybe it's better to fade the overs to start, maybe do a second half over or wait if the line dips. But for this game, I'm honestly fairly confident, because if this game was played week 6, I'm not sure that this line isn't 54. So you're getting a real touchdown discount, I think, on this line to start the season because of the perception that the Panthers have all this changeover, Raiders, aren't that good or something. But both offenses are actually much improved from last year. Just that in and itself, and how bad the Panthers defense will be, I think the worst in the NFL, and how the Raiders have underperformed on defense fairly traumatically the last few years. So they have a slight upgrade on defense this year, but I just don't think it's going to come into play in this game. So I like the Raiders a lot. I love the total. I would tease it. I would consider parlaying it, and I would look to live bet it the other way. So if you want to lean out on the over, you can hedge the other way. Under 55 is kind of where I would be looking at, or 57. And then if you can get Carolina plus 7.5, bet that under and see if you can middle. So I'm kind of all about the Raiders and the over, and looking to live bet to hit a nice sweet middle on this game. And this is going to be my game of the week for my NFL Blitz report, because it's a game that I don't think anybody is really going to pay a lot of attention to, because they're scared of what the Panthers are. They're scared of what the Raiders will be. And frankly, I'm not. I think I have a nice pulse on both these teams currently. We'll see how it plays out, but that's my game of the week. So giving it to you early.
Interesting. So I'll pour a little bit of cold water on this and be a little bit of a devil's advocate. I mean, I know in our offline conversations, you've definitely liked the Raiders, and you've had it kind of in your top 5 picks. Might slide into the Sportfolios, remains to be seen. The thing is what I see here is, obviously, I think you've mentioned this on previous in one of our previews around AFC West. Around the Raiders' defense has been miserable for as long as I can remember. They have talent on the defense, and they definitely made some upgrades. So Corey Littleton at middle linebacker, I think that's a great signing. Was really the quarterback of the defense for the Rams. Nick Kwiatkowski from the Bears, he was kind of emerging talent I think that was a nice, good signing. The introduction of Jonathan Abram, first round pick from last year, got hurt in game 1. He's back fully healthy. And of course, on the defensive line, Clelin Ferrell, Malik Collins, Max Crosby, Carl Nassib, Maurice Hurst, like a lot of players to put pressure on the quarterback. So I think the defense is definitely going to be better. The thing is, what I'm concerned about is Henry Ruggs, Brian Edwards been getting a lot of positive feedback out of training camp, but they're going to be your starting wide receivers, complemented by Hunter Renfrow, second-year wide receiver. And then, of course, Darren Waller at tight end. But so there's just inexperience here. Brian Edwards, Henry Ruggs have not played an NFL game yet. And that's where my concern comes from. Now, not that to say that they can't have a good game versus a depleted Panthers defense. Still going to have Derek Carr. Still going to have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. So Derek Carr should get time, and these wide receivers are fast, and so they are reported to being able to get great separation in training camp. So it could work out, to your point. I just have reservations. I feel like there's still a lot of question marks.
And that's part of the reason why I love this game, is because I know the market's going to have those question marks. So I understand that this game is not going to be the typical one that people are going to go after. And part of my rationale for the Raiders and the over in this too is John Gruden is actually an excellent game plan coach. So typically, and you saw last year, you saw the year before, I'm a Bucs fan back in the day, so I remember him back with Tampa, he's very good at game planning his team's strategy for the first half. It's kind of, if his team doesn't have talent down the stretch is when they really get exposed. So, he's going to come in prepared versus Matt Rule's first time in the NFL being a head coach with a defensive coordinator that was Baylor's defensive coordinator. They weren't very good either. So, all his teams also, Matt Rule, have struggled in their first year or two when he starts a program, let's say, in college. So there just hasn't been enough time for the Panthers to really get their stuff together. I think they're going to lean heavily on Christian McCaffrey. So if you want some DFS action, I know he's expensive on DraftKings, but I just see it cutting either way. Either the Raiders are just going to crush them, or it's going to be a blowout, So really, to me, if you're going to bet the Raiders, you might as well bet the total. They're either going to go hand in hand or one's going to hit. So you're kind of hedging your bet either way. I don't see a low-scoring Panthers squeeze it out 20-17 type game. I think that's very unlikely. And though I do understand your concerns with the young receivers, but they also have Nelson Aguilar and Zay Jones. So I'm not sure John Gruden's going to lean right on the rookies right away. I think they'll get playing time, but I think he's going to play to his team's strengths and, get the tight end and Jacobs involved early and often. So
yeah, that's fair. All right, so next game, Seahawks at the Falcons. Seahawks are -1.5, over under 49.5. So one of the steeper totals that we've seen here. And looking at the market, looks like the public is pounding the Seahawks. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it looks like 98% of tickets are on Seattle, but 53% of the cash is on Atlanta. So 2% of the bets are 50% of the money, which is very
questionable.
Sounds very questionable. Now, so this is the thing. I feel like we have a strong pulse on Atlanta the last 2 years. We understood why they struggled so mightily early in the season. Well, this year, their defense isn't going to be amazing, but they do have some improvements. They still have Grady Jarrett. They got Dante Fowler. Their secondary should be improved. They have a healthy Keanu Neal. So as far as being able to just stop the bleeding, which was their issue the first half of the season last year, they should be able to at least hang in there and give their offense a fighting chance, which to their offense, I think Todd Gurley, especially early in the season, he's going to play decently. He had 17 touches a game last year. Devontae Freeman had 17 touches a game. So I know he's lost a step. They're going to try to manage that knee, but he can still catch the ball in the backfield. The offensive line's a little better for the Falcons. So I don't think the Falcons are the 1-7 team that they started last year. I think this team is closer to their Super Bowl run. They have weapons. They're dynamic. They could go on a run. They're not going to be as potent as Kyle Shanahan's offense, but they're going to be able to throw the ball down the field. They're going to be able to get points. And so they're going to be right in this game probably throughout. It's just a question of, which way will the ball drop, so to speak. And to Seattle's side, with Russell Wilson, they have weapons. They have an upgraded defense. They're a tough team. Obviously, we have tickets on them to win the NFC. So it's really going to be a good game to really see where each of these teams is at. Honestly, if you want action on this game, I would lean towards playing a live line. So a live spread line of the team that goes down 10 first, maybe, depending how the game's playing out. But, if you get Atlanta plus 10, that sounds very appealing. If you got Seattle plus 6.5, that sounds very appealing as well. Is kind of where I would lean, or a total if, like Brett said, if the total drops in the first 6 minutes of the game, just, 2 punts, I would look to get over maybe 46 would be nice. So that's kind of what I'm looking at.
Yeah, I don't have any strong views in this game. We're probably going to avoid it. You're probably not going to see too much exposure on this game in any of our Sportfolios. Just because, we like the Seahawks from a macro perspective. We like the Falcons from a macro perspective. I don't think, however this game plays out, is going to change either of those longer-term views. I know that the Seahawks have played well on the road in the past in season openers, and the Falcons have struggled to start the season in the past few years. This is going to be a great secondary, if not the best secondary in the NFL, versus one of the best wide receivers groups in the NFL. So that's going to be just interesting from an entertainment perspective. Neither one of these offensive lines is great. Head coaching edge goes to the Seahawks. There's a lot to digest here. I think it's going to be a fun game to watch. I don't really have any actionable views on this one.
Yeah, but and that's why I said I think live betting this game is probably your safest bet to get some good value.
Yeah.
So yeah, no reason to rush plays on this game. Just let the game kind of come to you if you want to put action. You're watching it live.
Yeah. Bears at Lions. Bears +3. Over under 43.5. Wow, that seems low.
Low.
Very low.
Yeah. Sadly, we were harping the Lions in this game when it was -1.5, and now it's -3. So we've lost some value through to a key number, which is, not ideal, but it kind of proves kind of what we thought from the outset, which is, the Lions, we think, are probably a slightly better team at this point than the Chicago Bears, especially with the Chicago Bears QB situation, Nick Foles, or, God forbid, Mitch Trubisky. So, Mitch Trubisky has actually played pretty well against the Lions, which is my one caveat with this game. I think he's 9 touchdowns, 1 interception in his games against the Lions. Obviously Lions are a different team every year, whatever. But, they do have changeover on defense. So, and the Lions have struggled in the first game, the last 2 seasons under Matt Patricia, a blowout to the hapless Jets and, at home, and losing on the road to the Cardinals in a tie game that they should have won a million different ways. So I hesitate now because this line is 3. I just don't trust Matt Patricia to start the season. And the Bears, they are a very good defensive team. Matt Nagy, we think, is a decent coach, if not a good coach. So can he manufacture enough points versus a Lions team that is a little unpredictable? Stafford hasn't played in 10 months because he was injured and he had no preseason. So I know, training camp's one thing, but when everyone's going full speed, because you have to go full speed to beat a Bears defense, is the timing going to be right? Is it going to be a little off when he throws a deep pass to Marvin Jones? It's hard to say he's going to be on fire. So I really, as soon as this hit 3, I really backed off the Lions on this play. So that's just kind of my overview. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you that, we missed on the Lions. We should have bet it when it was, because it was even we liked it when it was 1, even before it was 1.5. Now we're at 3. Definitely lost value and probably, actionable value, which is going to decide what, whether we have played it or not. And now I feel like it's basically just fairly priced. So it's a toss up at the current price. I could see how the Bears could still win this game straight up. I mean, they've played the Lions well. I'm thinking the Bears are probably going to go Trubisky, mostly because the Bears do not want to admit defeat on Trubisky per se. And then I think also they don't want to start Nick Foles. Nick Foles sucks. Then go back to Trubisky, kind of like, all right, we're giving you the reins back, and his confidence is already ruined. And then he sucks. And then to go back to Nick Foles.
Yeah,
I think they just want to give Trubisky the reins. Here you go, last chance, do something. You have the home edge, because the current GM Pace drafted him. Nagy was probably involved in that decision in one way or the other. He's part of it. Ownership is part of it. Trubisky's, the success or lack thereof of his career is tied into Ryan Pace and Nagy. And I don't think they necessarily want to give up on that quite yet. And I think if Trubisky does suck through 4 or 5 weeks, then they hand the reins over to Foles, and it's Foles kind of for the rest of the season, unless he gets hurt or something like that. So I think we're going to see Trubisky. And, I feel like in game 1, at least, the Bears would probably be a little bit more potent with Trubisky, just because he has more familiarity with the team, knows more of the playbook, I'm assuming, than Foles.
And more confident, because it's week 1 versus a team he's played well against. So, he's had all off season to kind of get his mind right and whatnot, so, I don't doubt that Trubisky can and even might play actually fairly decent to start the season. It's just, I don't think it's sustainable personally, but, for this game, and that's where I hesitate, is the Bears have the better defense than the Lions. And if the Bears and Trubisky can kind of figure it out on the fly because of what you said, I mean, maybe they are the better team in this game, so, it's really a toss-up.
I mean, I think I could see the Bears possibly being the better team in this game. I think the Lions ultimately will be the better team over the course of the season. Now, the thing is and we commented on this when we talked about the Lions future bet that we made. It's not necessarily that we think the Lions will win the North. And I think Patricia is the biggest factor of why that might not happen. And the defense obviously still has some holes there as well. And then the health around Stafford, of course. But for this game, the line has been ripping in the Lions' direction the last few days. If this gets to Bears +4, +4.5, I think now Bears is a real, that's something, a real decision we'd have to make, and maybe lean on the Bears there. Just because, there is talent on this offense. Nagy does have an offensive mind, and can it come together? The Lions don't have a great defense. And if we're leaning on the offenses that are going to have the edge in the first few weeks, I can see it.
You want a consistent defense. I mean, Khalil Mack, strip sack Stafford for a touchdown. I mean, things like that can and will happen too with a solid defense. So,
And again, like Patricia, the Lions should have been 6-1 last season. And this is one of the reasons why we like the Lions from a macro position. But even though Matt Patricia literally unilaterally lost some games, refs lost some games as well. But nonetheless, that's just how big of a factor Patricia really is. And I could see Patricia making bonehead calls in this game and letting the Bears win the game. But yeah, I could go there. But I do like the over on this of 43.5.
Yeah, not bad. So 24-21 type game. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. All right, let's move on. Let's do Colts at Jags. Colts -7.5, over under 45. Jags are dismantling their team as we speak. No one is betting the Jags in this game. Who's betting the
Yeah.
Jags? Now,
Yeah.
that might mean there's opportunity, or is this going to be, what we saw last year in week 1? Nobody wanted to bet the Dolphins. Ravens were a touchdown favorite on the road. Same setup here. Do we see a similar result? Are we going to see a Jaguars just obliteration over the first few weeks of the season?
Well, first, that game was not a division game. And the Dolphins legitimately had, C-level talent at like 70% of their positions. Jags are not that bad. Their defense is not good. Their offense has some weapons. So, and I think Gardner Minshew is very capable, and he's kind of the Ryan Fitzpatrick. Remember, part of the reason we've wanted to fade the Dolphins week 1 especially was because Josh Rosen was starting with a horrific offensive line against the Ravens. He's not going to be able to throw the ball. He's going to get sacked every play, which is basically what happened. In this game, Gardner Minshew he's honestly like a young Ryan Fitzpatrick if you want to give a nice comp in a different kind of way. And, he can run, he can make plays with his legs, he can, come back. He had 3 comebacks last year in the fourth quarter. So as much as I want to pile on and say Colts, in a survivor, I would say straight up, definitely Colts is one of your better options this week. But it is a division game. These teams do know each other. Colts do have a new quarterback in Phillip Rivers, who's a little older. Anything can happen. Jags could cover. If this line's going to keep getting pushed, I mean, it feels a little too easy to go with Colts. But I love the Colts at -7. Now the market's piling on because Jags are having a fire sale. So, I don't want to over kind of like second guess kind of my initial feeling on this game. But 7 is a tall order. Gardner Minshew can make plays. So it's not a slam dunk, which is why this is actually my favorite game to if I was going to tease it. So if it went to 8, if it went to 8.5, went to 9, I would still tease it. I would still tease it and take the Colts. So no matter what the line ends up at, really, it's not going to hit 10. If it hits 9 by game time, I would still tease this with another game probably. And that's probably my safest bet just because I don't love giving up the 7 in this kind of division rivalry.
Yeah, that's true. The thing is, too, imagine, say this is a neutral field, which it essentially is. Are the Colts only 7.5 points better than the Jags? I mean, I think they're more than that. And the reason I'm a little bit hesitant on the Colts is, especially last year, I had reservations about taking the Dolphins or about taking the Ravens last year versus the Dolphins, just because road team minus a touchdown, just, almost in no situation do I love that. But you were pretty consistent, undeterred, liked the Ravens with no asterisks. And you're not as confident about the Colts in this situation as you were on the Ravens last year. So, and I could see, Gardner Minshew likes to play with a little bit of pressure, kind of bring teams back. I mean, Colts could be up by 13, and you get a final 1.5-minute drive, game is over, and, Minshew leads the team down the field 70 yards and throws a meaningless touchdown, and Colts win by 6. So I could definitely see that. So, the hook is going to be tough, but I agree. Colts tease this one down, find some other partner with it. I don't love the total either way in this game, because if the Jags do just play miserably on both sides of the ball, I don't think the Colts are going to score 50-plus points. Worst case scenario, and I don't think it's going to be a shootout. So I don't feel strong on the total one way or the other, but Colts in conjunction with another team tease this one down to Colts minus, 1.5. that sounds attractive.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, Packers at Vikings. Packers +3, back to 3. I saw we dipped down to 2.5 for a little bit this week. So Packers +3, over under 45.5. From a market perspective, looks like leaning Packers. Public is leaning Packers. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I lean Packers as well. There's no real home field advantage, like you said, especially week 1. Minnesota has that, big stadium, and, Minnesota fans are intense. They don't have any of that. So it's really going to come down to who's the better coach team and who has more talent, like who's ready to play. And I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be fired up to start the season. I wouldn't be surprised if by the halfway point, though their offense is not really designed for Aaron Rodgers to throw a ton of, balls, I wouldn't be surprised if kind of like, just functionally, if Aaron Rodgers looks like the best quarterback in the NFL through week 8, just from the perspective of how I think he may be approaching this season, that I'm going to show you that I'm the best and no one's going to stop me. So you might get a little edgier Rodgers the first half of the season before kind of father time catches up a little bit. And so that's partially why I like Green Bay in this spot. And last year, they were underdogs game 1 versus the Bears. The team, Bears made the playoffs, Green Bay didn't, and in this spot, Minnesota's favorited based on home field, basically trying to say these teams are even. I don't think they're even. I mean, Minnesota clearly got worse in the offseason. They lost 4 defensive starters. They lost Stefan Diggs, had to break in a new rookie. They lost their offensive coordinator. So there's a lot to replace here, whereas the Packers, I mean, they really stayed put for the most part. So I think you got to get the slight edge to the Packers in this, especially if you're getting, almost 3 points. That would be, I think, ideal.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. Vikings just lost so much personnel. I don't see how they can put in a solid performance week 1. The thing is, what makes me slightly hesitant on it is I'm not bullish on the Packers at all this year either. They have the more continuity, so I think that's definitely the plus. At 3, I think you got to lean Packers, even with the public on your side. It makes me feel miserable. But at 3, I mean, this could be a 3-point game. I feel like it's almost a free play at 3. Maybe you push. I think the Packers can definitely win this game straight up. Thielen is past his prime, I think. I mean, it's not that he's gonna, he's not a worthwhile starter. I think he is. But especially, inexperience past Thielen in the wide receiver crew here for Vikings. Packers don't have great talent at wide receiver either, but I'm still going to defer to Rodgers over Cousins, no doubt. And I don't think they're going to have the wide receiver there to really take the top off like Diggs could in the past. Definitely no one that's going to command the same type of respect, at least, that Diggs would. So I'm definitely going to lean the Packers, +3, especially if it's at the 3. If it dips below, I think it's no action. Over under 45.5. I don't feel strongly there either. Again, I'd lean to the over, no doubt. I think maybe teasing Packers, up and teasing the total, the over down. I think that could be an attractive play. I mean, I don't love it either way. Again, it's not a big fan of the Packers this year either. So it's not too much feedback. Let's go on to the Chargers at Bengals. Chargers -3 was 3.5 for a lot of the offseason, and now down to 3 right now. Over under 44. From a market perspective, public strongly leaning Chargers. So line moving against them. Sharps look like they're taking some Bengals exposure. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't have a strong opinion on this game because, both teams have so much changeover and were not very good last year, record-wise at least, that I feel like you need to wait and see what these teams even are. The Bengals defense is not very good. Chargers are breaking in Tyrod Taylor, don't have a lot of depth at wide receiver past Keenan Allen and that hobbled Mike Williams. So, you just kind of need to see where these teams are, who they are, how they match up. Is Burrow, is he Baker Mayfield his rookie year? Or is he going to struggle so who are these teams? I think is the biggest question to kind of gauge. So I don't really have a strong lean either in anything for this game. I'd probably lay off most everything in this game.
Yeah, because it looks like the sharp side is definitely the Bengals, and I don't know if I could pull the trigger on the Bengals. I could see how it could play out. I mean, especially if Joe Burrow can put in, an admirable performance that is relatively error-free. He's got the talent around him with, Mixon, Bernard at running back, Green, Boyd, the rookie Higgins, John Ross, Aiden Tate. There's plenty to find passing the ball. The offensive line has issues, but is better than it was last year, especially with the return of Jonah Williams, their first-round pick last year, who missed the entire season. They upgraded their defense. The defense is still not going to be good, it looks like, but they definitely upgraded the secondary. They updated upgraded the defensive line, signed DJ Reader. Still have Geno Atkins, Carlos Dunlap. They struggled to stop the run last year. But they should do a better job of that. So the line is short, and especially with no home field advantage, really makes me a little suspicious. And I don't feel strongly to kind of go on a limb and really take the Chargers. They're not a great team. It's not going to be an explosive offense. The defense has always had tons of talent, but have always underperformed. I don't feel strongly. I mean, maybe our views change over the next few days, but as of right now, I think no action.
I agree.
Cardinals at Niners. Cardinals sitting at +7 over under 47. I know you feel a way about this game.
Yeah, so I feel very strongly about this game, and I hate saying feel because it's more so just like perception of market and these teams fundamentally. With some stats thrown in. But, Cardinals last year played the 49ers twice, obviously, same division. And, they lost, I believe, the first game by 3 or 4. And the second game, they lost by 10. But in that second game, Kyler Murray, it was, 1 second to go, threw the ball, fumbled, whatever. 49ers scooped it up for a touchdown, a meaningless touchdown, right? So, basically this line is at the point of what both those games finished at in a total, right? So they only lost to the 49ers basically by 7 points total within 2 games. And now this line is 7. So with the 49ers so banged up at wide receiver, the Achilles heel of the Cardinals last year, Garoppolo threw for like 4 touchdowns in both games, which he could still do here, but they couldn't run the ball against the Cardinals last year. So, having DeAndre Hopkins for the Cardinals, having another year with Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury, I just really like the 49ers to have a regression this year and for the Cardinals to continue to kind of put things together. So at +7, it just seems like such a big line for division foes that, it really should be, I feel like it should be 4.
Could be.
Yeah, I like the Cardinals. I would consider Cardinals money line. I would consider the over. So those are kind of where I'm leaning right now.
I think I definitely like the over in this game. That's my strongest lean at 47. I think this is definitely going to go into the 50s. So I think you have 3-4 points of value right there. I understand what you're saying. The thing is, what makes me nervous is it's the square, maybe not even square sharp. Maybe it's just the square analysis of Cardinals played them tough 2 times last season, gonna play them tough this season. I mean, again, it's not in itself dispositive to push you off the Cardinals in itself. It's just that is a factor that is well known, well compensated for, that is priced into this line. Find something else to that you find attractive about this game. And you've noted some of those things. So it's not that that is your only angle. I think Murray could have a great season. I think the addition of Hopkins is obviously great. I think those are all kind of market consensus opinions. I think everyone knows the wide receivers for the Niners are dealing with injuries. So they're definitely getting the benefit of the doubt, being a well-known team, a lot of fans, getting the fan bias, supposedly, quote, at home. Again, Super Bowl losers have had their hangovers. I don't know if it necessarily comes in week one. I totally agree with you. Their defense is definitely going to regress. I think Richard Sherman specifically is going to regress. They lost, some talent on the defensive line. That's, they're not going to be as potent as they were last season when they were just demolishing offensive lines and getting pressure on the quarterback immediately. Murray will be able to move around, and he's got that great deep ball, and he's going to have the talent around him to take advantage of that. I really like Cliff Kingsbury. I think it could be a close game, and if that's the case, Cardinals +7 is definitely the right side. I just wish I saw more action on more pressure on the spread. But I agree with you that I think at this point in time, again, not finalized, but Cardinals is a strong contender for one of our top 5 picks, especially at +7. And if it inches to 7.5, which I don't expect it's going to, that's even more attractive. But I would say my favorite lean in this game is to the over 47. Bucks Saints. Bucks at Saints, Bucks +3.5, over under 49.5. This is the game I'm looking forward to the most. I think probably almost everyone is. I think that's also a market consensus opinion. This is going to be one of the late afternoon games, so it's going to be prime time. All eyes are going to be on it. Super excited. I know you're a Bucks fan. I'm sure you're super excited just for the Bucks from a homer perspective. So try to take off your homer hat at least for 2 minutes, and let's hear your thoughts on this game.
Yeah, actually, I wouldn't be surprised if the Bucks lay an egg here. So, and the reason is, and I was a Bucks fan when I was 15. I'm a few decades older than that now, but I haven't really been following the Bucks.
That's a stretch.
Well, I haven't been following the Bucks religiously the last 10, 15 years. So there's a disconnect of my passion for them. It would be cool to see them do nicely, but I don't really care. So I feel like I don't really have a homer vibe going, I really at all. So in this game, there's a lot of obviously new pieces for the Bucks. There's a lot of continuity for the Saints. The one caveat is the Saints typically do struggle in the beginning of the season. Last year, they should have lost to the Texans in the first game. The year before that, the Bucks with Ryan Fitzpatrick threw up 50 points against them.
True.
So it's tale of two coins. Is the Tampa offense going to be humming to start this game, or are they not? And that to me is
that's hard.
It's hard to handicap that because there's no way for us to really know, especially there's no preseason. We've seen nothing. We have no idea at full speed is the running back going to know how to get in front of the line, block for Brady we just don't know. So Saints have the continuity, which is why if I had to lean aside, I would really lean, obviously, I think the over is probably the most appealing, but it probably goes hand in hand. Like if you like the Bucks, I think you should just go ahead and add the total over, because if the Bucks are going to cover, that means they're scoring, and if they're scoring, Saints are going to be scoring, so it's going to probably hit over. And I think the opposite might be true of the Saints. Like if the Saints are really going to dominate this game, I think it's because they're going to stifle the Bucks offense. They're just not ready to be put together yet. So that's kind of how I view the two sides. But if I had to guess right now, I wouldn't be surprised if Saints, really beat down the Bucs and make the Bucs look like just a bunch of old guys that don't know how to play football anymore. But I think that's actually good from a market perspective, because that could actually discount the Bucs week 2 through week 9 before their schedule kind of gets hard again. So that's kind of my overview.
Yeah, and I really don't disagree with any of that. I don't think the Bucs would lay an egg. I think if you were to see a really like outlier outcome, it would be that this game goes like a touchdown under, that it's like 42 points, that like both offenses kind of struggle, trying like both coaches kind of over game planned, two really old rusty quarterbacks, that just, there's this great game plan and the execution is just not there come week 1. And I think you make a really good observation that, the Saints have played poorly week 1, and that goes to coaching. And obviously they have great coaching, but they clearly have not been prepared going into week 1. And this week 1 is the most unprepared every team is going to be. So are the Saints going to be even more unprepared? Possibly. I think, just the biggest outlier here is that this game like kind of flies under the radar as a lower scoring game, especially with one of the highest totals that we've seen this week. Yeah. And two, because both defenses, the Bucs defense is definitely under the radar. The Saints defense is well known to be one of the best in the league. So I think that both defenses could show up. Both defenses could put a lot of pressure on the opposing quarterbacks, a lot of dump offs, a lot of.
It's actually to your point. The defenses actually have more continuity than the offenses. So if we're really harping on continuity being kind of the key factor, kind of macro factor of how our handicaps are going to be funneled through the beginning of the season, in this scenario, the consistency is on the defensive sides of the ball, because Saints got Emmanuel Sanders, they got a new running back, a third running back in the backfield. So, Kamara's having contract situation hiccups and a little bit of an injury, so there's new fact, Drew Brees, he missed 8 games last year. So, the offenses are the ones that lack cohesion, whereas the defenses, I think, are probably ready to go. And then because of the division game, the one thing that we haven't talked about yet, which I think is important to mention, is the reason division games are typically more competitive, even when a good team versus a bad team happens, is because they really hate each other. And why that's important is because it keeps the team, especially the defenses, like playing at a high level, because they're so motivated to really get after it. And as we know in any sport like basketball, etc., defense really starts with intensity, because you have to be aggressive. You can't just sit back and react. If you're sitting on your heels on defense, you're going to get burned every time. You have to be aggressive and attack, but that takes extra energy. And that's why home field is generally given such value, is because it generally kind of pumps up the defense to stay engaged, et cetera. But what also pumps up the defense is division games, because they hate each other. So to Brett's point, I think he might be right. I think this actually may be a fake out game where the over is not what you want to be considering. Not saying you play the under, but the over is so obvious that actually the continuity might be on the defense and actually might have the advantage here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I also think too, if you like the Bucs, I think Bucs money line. I think if the Bucs show up, they show up, and they look pretty ferocious. So I think you just take Bucs plus 163 and ditch the spread. Cowboys at Rams. Cowboys -2. Rams opening up their new stadium. Over under 51.5. From a market perspective, looks like public strongly leaning Cowboys.
Yeah, this is a weird game because I could see it going totally different ways. We're not very high on the Rams, and I think we've gotten higher on Dallas, on a macro view as we've dug into kind of their situation, et cetera. Now, obviously,
Yeah,
Cowboys are bringing in a new head coach, but their offensive coordinator is going to stay the same and will actually have more freedom to really kind of, do the kind of play calling he wants to do, at least to start the season. The trouble with kind of both teams is their defenses. Cowboys defense should be better than the Rams, but, both have a lot of holes. They have some really good players and they have a lot of holes in other spots. And, so that's just kind of my biggest concern with this game and these teams, excuse me, is I'm not sure who's going to have the more defensive consistency in this particular game. I would lean towards Dallas, but I think because the Rams are opening this like epic new stadium, that there's a level of home field advantage that actually will exist in this game specifically because of the excitement of this new stadium. So whereas other teams like Bengals back at the stadium that no one was ever in anyways, I don't know how much of an advantage that really is going to be. But with the Rams, I think the players are going to be pumped. I mean, it's brand spanking new $3 billion stadium or whatever. So I think there is a legit home field advantage for the Rams in this game. And that's kind of my caveat as to why I'm not completely onto the Cowboys, though I think they're more primed and ready to win this.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Mike McCarthy, not sure how he's going to put this team together. So that's a big variable as well.
Yeah, exactly. And, I have a bad taste in my mouth with Cowboys, but I think it's mostly was the Jason Garrett effect. I mean, I rank Jason Garrett as the worst coach in the NFL.
Below Matt Patricia.
Below Matt Patricia. Because Matt Patricia at least never had like all-star talent across both offenses and defenses. Jason Garrett almost always had Pro Bowl talent on his team and never was able to fully capitalize on it. In fact, even just missing playoffs in multiple years. So I feel like the removal of Jason Garrett in itself is a massive upgrade. The thing is, I don't necessarily love Mike McCarthy either. I think having the continuity of keeping Kellen Moore offensive coordinator is really, really big. And we've heard explicit comments from McCarthy saying that he's not going to step on Kellen Moore's toes because there was a big, a lot in the media talking about how Kellen Moore was given the reins at the beginning of the season last year. Cowboys started off 3-0, and then Jason Garrett, started to inch his way into the play calling regime, and Kellen Moore was kind of pushed out, and the Cowboys then began to suffer. So maybe the Cowboys can fully capitalize, if not fully, at least mostly capitalize on the talent that they have on their roster, which is undeniable. I just wonder if Mike McCarthy's the right guy to do it. And the Rams, we're quite low on them, but I don't know if they necessarily are going to put a very bad performance in week one. The Rams did not get better in the offseason. That's plain fact. Now, who knows? Maybe they execute better, and that's how they could possibly have a better record than last year. But they did not net add talent. Cam Akers is going to be basically their starting lead back. He's going to be a rookie. You just don't know what to see from them. The offensive line has questions. If the Cowboys put pressure on Goff, that's a massive issue. I think the Rams are going to start using more two tight ends like they did at the end of last season. That's going to help protect Goff because I think McVay knows what every sports bettor knows is you put pressure on Goff and the Rams are toast.
Yep.
And I think so they're going to do everything in their power to make sure Goff has time. So I think using two tight ends is going to help do that. So I think this is a game, in fact, at 51.5, I think this is the highest, it's tied with So it is the highest game out on Sunday. Only Texans Chiefs is higher. I would probably play this game under. I don't know. I guess I would lean under. It's definitely not an actionable play. But
actually, I mean, I would, like you said, if you think your first 2-3 drives might just kind of fall flat, if you could lean an under early and then get an over 40, 5 or 7 maybe, kind of see if you can middle it. I think that could be an interesting take.
That could be interesting.
It's tricky because, like you said, I think the surest bet in this game probably is that Dallas is going to score. So, of all angles of this game, if you get a Dallas is going to score 24 points or whatever the total, 27, I guess, that is kind of where I would lean because, Rams have no linebackers and they struggled with the run last year. So, they lost Littleton. They have a bunch of new guys. One of the guys he got ACL tore. So I'm not sure Cowboys aren't going to be able to just run the ball, kind of not as good as the Ravens did against the Rams last year, but in a similar fashion. And then obviously Dak throwing away from Ramsey with his other weapons. So, I mean, Dallas should be able to score on the Rams, and the Rams are going to be forced to throw it to keep up. So, yeah, it's a tricky total, but yeah, I think live betting is probably your best bet in this game, or getting a second half, if it's a slow first half.
Mm-hmm. I just think, Rams are getting a lot of name credibility because they have Aaron Donald. Again, sure, one of the best defensive ends in the game, no doubt. Jalen Ramsey, sure, one of the best quarterbacks in the game, no doubt. But they can't play every position. And besides those two, I just don't see any other talent here. So how does this defense just not get totally exposed? And
PFF ranked their linebacking core, I think, the worst in the league. And I think that was before the injury to one of the guys that was supposed to be starting. So, I mean, they're not going to be able. They're not, and that's always been Aaron Donald's kind of weakness in general. Is if you want to stop Aaron Donald, you run right at him, right? That's kind of what you do. So with Ezekiel Elliott, Cowboys still have a strong top 10 offensive line.
No doubt. DeMarcus Lawrence and now Everson Griffin, I mean, they're going to get some pressure there. And, I mean, Van Der Esch and Sean Lee, both surprisingly healthy at the same time. Obviously, neither one of them is going to be able to play all 16 games just because they just can't. But they're going to be starting this game, at least as of now.
The more we talk about it, the more, I mean, I don't know how I'm starting to really like the Cowboys. There a lot of things have to go right for the Rams and go wrong for the Cowboys I feel like, to lose this game, which can always happen. It just seems like, we have the Rams bottom at 5 games. They could win 5 games this season, maybe up to 9.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the Cowboys, they're, staying healthy. Their bottom is 8 games, like last year. They're going to win 8 to 12 games just from the division they're in, and they're a strong enough, talented team. So, we're putting the Cowboys at a complete 3 games better than the Rams. The line's only 2.5. I understand it's on the road, so to speak, but week 1, it's a high total. So they are conceding that since the Cowboys are the favorite, that the Cowboys are going to score against the Rams.
Mm-hmm. I do like Cowboys. I'm thinking more about it. Yeah, Cowboys minus 2, because I agree with you. The Cowboys are going to be able to score, but I don't know that the Rams are going to be able to score.
Exactly.
I mean, now this game could be low scoring, possibly. I think that's the only way the Rams really have an opportunity to keep the game close, is if it's lower scoring. If this game goes under, the Rams are probably going to play the game. It's going to be a close game. Not that the Rams win, but if it's under, the game is close. If it's over, it's Cowboys by double digits or by a touchdown or more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so a correlated parlay teaser with Cowboys and The over sounds
True.
smart, but then I could see Cowboys winning 35-14, and it doesn't
No
go
doubt.
over just because. I think that's a great point. Remember, the Rams' offense used to be funneled through Todd Gurley. They don't even know who the running back is right now. It might be running back by committee, and Cam Akers may be good. We don't know. So, they're really going to be reliant upon the passing game, Jared Goff and Cooper Kupp, and they're going to. And my point being, they're going to be somewhat predictable, I presume, and that's leaves a big gap in their offensive dynamic. So.
Yeah. All right. Steelers at Giants, the first of two Monday Night Football games in week one. Steelers -4, over under 47. From a betting perspective, looks like from a market perspective, everyone's pounding the Steelers. 90% of the cash is on the Steelers, 77% of the tickets. I know you're just a square guy in week one.
I guess. Well, so my theory on week one, though, is unlike any other week, so to speak, is these lines come out early because they're trying to build up hype, get action, and all this stuff. And then they get kind of locked into the prices before they even know what these teams even are, right? Like these lines have been up for how long? So they can't really move off these lines that they've created as things evolve and change. And let's be honest, there's information everywhere. People can, ESPN is getting more sophisticated with their information. I see it in my fantasy leagues. Like, Jesus Christ, like, why are you giving away all this information about this sleeper that only I knew, I thought? Now everyone knows, so there's no edge now. So a part of the public kind of like leaning certain games, I feel like, is it's inevitable just because it's the first week. There's information out there. The lines are not going to be accurate to begin with overall, and the information is just going to outweigh where the line originated. So regardless of that, in this game, it's a tough one because, the cohesion is the Steelers' defense and the Giants' offense, more or less. So which is going to give? Now, obviously, I think the Steelers' defense on the whole of the season is going to be probably the best in the NFL. But week one, like we said, are they in shape? Are they cohesive? Like, are they cohesive from like an energy standpoint? Synergies of defense. Everyone knows where everyone is. That could be trying. So I really don't have a strong opinion about this game and how it could play out. So what do you think?
I'm gonna say I like the under on this game. Now, I've specifically picked the games where I think I like the under, and pretty much if I didn't comment that I like the under, I mostly lean over. And because I think, the Steelers defense is still going to be stout. I think the Giants offense is still going to be finding themselves. And I think the Steelers offense could also be finding themselves. I don't think Big Ben's going to come out here and throw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. Even given the weapons that he has. I think the Giants defense is obviously subpar. I like they got Logan Ryan just recently. I think combination with Jabril Peppers, that's going to help. I think Luke Fackrell, which they got from the Giants, was an underrated signing. So I think there's some pockets of talent there. And I think the Steelers, both these offenses are going to be feeling themselves out. So I think that, especially with no offseason, it's going to hurt like these offenses more so than others. And so I think the Steelers defense obviously will definitely play tough. So that's kind of like how from the side perspective, I don't know. I don't love either side. I don't think the spread's going to come into play here.
Yeah. It's kind of
like if the Giants, if you like Giants +4, take Giants money line.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think you're right. I think if the Steelers are going to play well and be put together, they're going to win by more than 7. If the Giants are going to play well and cover, they're probably going to win straight up. So
yeah, because the likely scenarios, Big Ben struggles, has a hard time moving around in the pocket. Maybe the offensive line struggles. Giants are pumped, kind of outperform. Danny Dimes plays vintage Danny Dimes football. Yeah. Steelers defense kind of regresses, and Hey, Steelers laid a dud in week 1 last year. Granted, it was the Patriots, but I mean, that was a miserable performance. I think we lost like 38-0. Steelers, definitely head coaching edge for sure. Giants, have Joe Judge, total rookie, never had any head coaching experience before. Jason Garrett as offensive coordinator. I know you and Corey both do like that signing. I don't feel strongly kind of anyway.
Yeah. I think it's a wait and see on both these teams, just to get a better vibe on them.
Yeah. All right. Lastly, Titans at Denver. Titans +1 over under 41. One of the second lowest total that we've seen here.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like, the public's on the Titans, which I'm glad because I think I'm going to be on the Broncos. The one thing, this is probably the biggest home field advantage of any game of the season, okay? And the reason I say that is the Titans have not had preseason games, and then they're going up into altitude at Denver to play a team that matches up pretty well. They're very similar stylistically, like a kind of old school Vic Fangio type team defense, run the ball, and then Titans same with Mike Vrabel. So matchup wise, they're loosely identical teams, and I'm not high on Drew Lock, but I'm not sure Drew Lock isn't as good as Ryan Tannehill, because I don't think Ryan Tannehill's the best, a top 15 QB. I think he had a strong year last year, but he's probably, 15th to 20th top QB in the NFL. So in this game, at altitude, I mean, I think all the edge goes to the Broncos. I don't know. I mean, Titans, what they are. They're somewhat predictable, right? They're going to want to run Henry. They're going to want to do play action. They're going to try to hit some balls down the field. And if you stop Henry, you're not going to get blown out. So you're going to be in the game. You're going to have a chance to win it. Like, anything can happen. So I think the deck is stacked against the Titans in this spot week 1.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
I can see, Broncos opened earlier in the spring -2.5, now down to 1. Not a ton of public action, it looks like, on the Titans. 60% of the tickets I see, 52% of the cash. A lot of movement. Now, it probably wasn't too much influential money. Well, I think this one will dictate kind of how it transpires over the next 7 days. We're a week from kickoff, essentially, here. I think that will guide my opinion, because to your point, I think these teams are very close to one another, at least stylistically, as you pointed out. Obviously, the Titans are a much more is a better version, I feel like, of the Broncos. At least, definitely more accomplished, at least more consistent.
But that's actually that's my point. Yeah, Drew Lock is the biggest question mark. But beyond that, I think what you said is kind of my problem with the Titans is its perception. Perception is what they did to the Ravens. They beat the Patriots. They were up 10 against the Chiefs. AFC Championship game. Like, this team turned a corner, and they're dynamic now. They're really good. They're a team that could win the Super Bowl. None of that is true. So it's just not true. So, but that is going to be the public narrative, right? So you're not going to get a public swing on Denver in this game. Even people that like Drew Lock and think he might be the next John Elway or something. I don't know who, but this is, to me, like the perfect setup to fade the Titans. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to hit, doesn't mean it's going to happen, blah, 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 but it just screams that anyone who's betting the Titans, like, where's the edge? There's no edge. It's just, Titans were in the AFC Championship game. They were good. Derrick Henry. Like, there's no handicap. There's no edge. Their defense got a little worse from pieces they've lost. I just, I just don't see any value.
And also lost Conklin on the offensive line.
Yeah, so if the public's going to be on them and there's no, like, strategic edge with the game and there's no benefit. There's no, you're getting +1, +1.5. It just,
I guess it comes down to, I just don't know if because I think the Titans defense is still going to be solid. And I just don't know if I love Locke in week 1 versus this defense.
at altitude, I think I actually do, because by the time the second half hits, I mean, the Titans team hasn't played a full game. They haven't played a preseason game.
Yeah.
They're going to get worn out. Yeah, I just think this reminds me of the I feel like it's going to be closer to what we saw when the Broncos played the Browns last season. Style, kind of style-wise.
Could be. Yeah. Well, the thing is, I guess what I would lean on this is over. I mean, 41. I mean, that's just too low, I feel like. I just don't – I think if we see –
honestly, I would lean the under on a tease with the Broncos. I think that's or the Titans. I think both could be options, but I would lean Broncos and the under and get it up closer to 47, 48 if you could.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that sounds
because you're not. 24 is what that would be suggestive of. Like, I don't think you're gonna get much more than 24-20. I think that's probably your ceiling.
Yeah, and that could be true.
27-24 would be like, I would be shocked if it was that high.
Yeah.
Because that means both offenses are playing dynamic football, which is neither of them is that their strength.
Yeah. Well, yeah, a lot of questions to be had, to be answered in this week 1. I think we're going to learn a ton. It's definitely going to be one of the most interesting week 1s that we've ever seen. I think, we can't compare our performance in this week 1 versus other seasons week 1 because, Zach, we usually start off the season quite hot because we have better reads on teams than the market does. There's a lot of mispricings, and it really isn't until week 5, week 6, until the lines really start to tighten. Markets get a lot better hold of what these teams are. Buys start coming into play. There's less games to choose from, and it gets a lot tougher. So it really is meaningful when, we got to start off hot because the middle of the season is just so much more difficult. The thing is, in this season, I don't know if we're necessarily going to have a great edge in at least week 1 here because we just haven't seen any of these teams play. There's no preseason. There's been limited tape from training camp. We're basically just taking every beat reporter's kind of words as gospel. It's just going to be such a mess. I would be excited, pleased if we went 3-2.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think it's a tale of two sides. I think we'll actually to give a comparison, and we'll finish this podcast. I think we'll end up doing better in our aggressive portfolio. As in we're up 4%, and in core is maybe where we miss a game or two is probably more likely. So I think on the whole, I think we have a good handle for our aggressive portfolio.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
I think core, isolating 5 games is going to be tricky.
Yeah, I think that makes sense actually too. Yeah, because if you give us enough volume, we'll have edge, but there's no high conviction here. It's more or less conviction. And so if you gave us enough volume, probably going to come out positive. But yeah, in our top 5 selections, what's going to have to put into core? Yeah, 2-3, 3-2 is kind of what I feel week 1, and I would be fine with that.
Yeah.
So that wraps up our week 1 preview. We had a lot of thoughts, mostly because there's just so many questions this season. We're trying to fill in the blanks, and sometimes, it's just we're trying to come up with something. So hopefully you find, our thoughts on a lot of these games, illuminating, and we'll put you in a better position to make your bets come week 1. And then, of course, please, sign up for the premium at Bet Karma. You'll get access to all of our Sportfolio picks over the course of the season. And we look forward to working with you throughout the course of 2020. So with that, we'll sign off, and that's the closing bell.